Happy holidays to everybody. Obviously, got a full week here around the Christmas holiday with our guys here, and a couple really good teams that are playing exceptionally well. Obviously, you saw what both teams have done here early in the Big Ten season. Uh, Both teams, Rutgers is off to a great start, and as expected, top top 10 or 15 team in the country, and then Northwestern beating Michigan State, who is ranked number 4. So a lot of preparation will go into this week around the holidays, and we'll need to really play well coming off of our game in Cleveland.
All right, we will open the questioning with Steve Hellwagon.
Hey, Coach. Got a chance to watch their game against Illinois over the weekend, and looks like they've got a great mix. 4 guys who played with them last year and a couple younger guys who are starting to emerge a little bit. Look like a very athletic team. But when Omoruyi, I believe, left the game, they didn't have a lot of height, it didn't seem. I don't know if what's your thought about what you saw, what you're seeing out of them. I'm sure you watched more than just that one game, but for them to stand tall against Illinois was pretty impressive.
Yeah, Steve. What they've got is I think obviously Miles Johnson has tremendous size, and he's an older player. He's a really, really effective big in our league. He doesn't get talked about enough. This is a tremendous Rutgers team, deep, balanced, really well coached. And they've got a lot of returning guys and some guys that are emerging in terms of all conference players. Obviously, Gio was, I believe, a preseason pick, as was maybe Ron Harper. But as you mentioned, a lot of guys that have been together. Their positional size is pretty good, Steve. And then when you add in Miles Johnson to the equation, he's, 6'11", probably 265. So he adds great size to him at that position, and returning starting big. And then I think he's kind of taken turns, as you mentioned, with their freshmen at starting this year. So a big challenge for our interior guys. I'm not sure yet what the situation will be with their injured player, but obviously he's a talented young man.
And just following up on the game the other day, it's hard to expect a lot out of freshmen game in and game out, but certainly those 2 guys were very instrumental in you guys defeating UCLA. Just your thought about their continued progression and the hope that you'll get those kind of contributions.
Well, you mentioned it, Steve. It's just, I think, I don't think it's necessarily fair to expect that of any freshman every game, particularly in the best league in the country. But I do think that guys have made strides. Both guys have been able to help us this year in a lot of ways, and they've played in every game, and they played in some cases a fairly significant amount, at least for freshmen in most of our games. So it's been great to see the progress of those guys. I'm sure we'll deal with ups and downs, but they have certainly helped our team.
Thank you.
Up next, Griffin Strong.
Hey, Coach, I was just wondering about Seth. Obviously, he got his first minutes the other night. Do you foresee kind of a gradual increase in minutes from him immediately after that game, or is he still kind of a game time decision and kind of wait and see how he feels each game?
Yeah, I think it'll be more. Let's see how he feels from game to game. He's not ready to play a significant amount of minutes. He's not. He's not physically quite ready for that. And he's not in the shape to do that. It's going to be a slow process. I think people hopefully have understood that by now, that the young man has worked really hard to get back to this point, but it's not a situation where he's necessarily ready to play significant minutes, Big Ten minutes. And that might be a while. Who knows when that'll be. I'm not going to put a timeline on it, but it's not right now. He's just got to continue to put in good work day after day.
And then also, when you look at Dwayne's field goal percentage, it kind of jumps off the paper a little bit, being a little bit low.
Yeah.
Is that number a level of concern? Is there a level of concern for you about that number with him, or for him, is it a little bit less concerning because you kind of need that offense from him with a lot of shots?
No, he's got to improve his efficiency. There's no question. And we got to help him do that, but he's got to improve his efficiency. And he's got to become a more efficient offensive player. There's no question that those numbers need to improve.
Thanks, Coach.
Sure.
Up next, Adam Jardy.
Hi, Chris. With 2 games here this week or sandwiched around the holiday, I know in the past you've always spoken about wanting to give your guys time off around Christmas. And I know this year is what it is. But I just wonder, like, what the conversations have been like with your players as far as not being able to go home for Christmas, or is that stuff you had to talk about with them? Did you maybe put it to a vote? How have you approached, what they're going to have to go through this week with your team?
Well, early on, they voted to play around the holidays. I think that it's a conversation we've had early on. We're going to try to do as much as we can, Adam, to provide a Christmas experience for them. And my wife has been working on some things here for. Along with the other wives and with our players' moms for a couple weeks now. And we tried to coordinate some things as soon as we knew we were going to be here around the holidays. I just think that's important for our guys. I think we would all, enjoy, a day or two off around the holidays. But obviously in a year like this, when you're trying to play during a pandemic, it's not possible. So I wish, I think our guys understand that, and they've come to grips with it now. It's not to say that, Christmas won't have some challenges, but, we'll be practicing and preparing for Northwestern, but we are going to do some things on Christmas Eve to provide as much of a Christmas experience for them away from their families as we can.
How have you seen your guys continue to just handle the mental challenge of playing this season? You've spoken a lot about how, they really, appreciating the opportunities that you have to play. And there does seem to be a joy around your team as far as watching them in the arena. But I just wonder how you've seen them handle. I assume that the mental challenge will just grow as the season goes on, and it probably amplifies around the holiday. How have you seen them mentally just deal with all of this?
Well, I think it amplifies around probably the holiday. It'll amplify around our league. I think that's, but you have a choice in all this, and that is to kind of embrace what we have here and playing for each other and playing with each other. We have a great group, a mature group that has handled all this stuff really well, exceptionally well, really exceptionally well. Now it's different. We're a 2-semester sport, so I think your season is longer than maybe some other sports. So I think there's some awareness that we're going to have as coaches about what that grind may look like.
Up next, Brendan Gulick.
Hi, Coach. Merry Christmas.
Hey, Brendan. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Want to ask you, I guess, first off the top about kind of following up on what Steve had asked you about the freshmen, specifically Eugene. Can you think back maybe in your coaching career of other examples of guys who are in their freshman year who maybe have, a game where they only get in for a few minutes but hit a couple shots, make a significant impact and kind of get in a rhythm where maybe that can be like a real mental building block for them? Or have you seen other examples of that over time?
I don't know that any specifically come to mind, but certainly throughout my career, I think I've seen plenty of freshmen who've maybe gotten consistent minutes and had a game where they performed really well in somewhat maybe limited minutes. Nothing specifically comes to mind. I do remember, obviously, Justin, his freshman year, he was playing off and on and then had that big game against Iowa. But I think, Gene understands that for him right now, he's got to be really good defensively. He's got to rebound the ball for us. He's got to have a great understanding of what we're doing defensively. He's got to take care of the ball, and then he's got to be ready, when his number's called offensively. So he's got to play off other guys, and he's done that really well. And I've not reflected on any games right now where I've said I don't think he's done that particularly well. We have some wing depth right now with the return of Musa and with Justice and Justin. So I think it's going to be kind of a situation where Gene has to continue to grow and get better in practice and get better in whatever minutes are given to him and continue. And that's true of every freshman. Every freshman has a different and unique path. And I think you see all over the country, some guys handle that better than others. And it's a challenge. But Gene's obviously played in every game and played, fairly consistent minutes. And so has Zed. We'll see what what the momentum of last game does for him. I think more than anything, he's just got to continue to focus on doing his role and his job at a high level.
And one other thing about Seth, since he got on the floor and has gotten a little more attention lately, how is Seth from the mental part of the game when he hasn't been able to physically maybe take the same intensity of reps in practice and obviously not in games? Mentally, how locked in is he at practice? How well does he understand what you guys are doing so that hopefully when he gets to that point physically, he's healthy, that he can jump in and make an immediate impact?
Well, he's a great kid. He's a great kid to begin with. Seth is a great young man, and but I think that's a transition for anyone who goes from one program to the next. Understanding the attention to detail and the practice habits required here. And I think he's growing in those areas and continuing to get better and managing that while he's recovering from an injury, a significant injury. So by all accounts, his progress has been good, but I think he's got some growth in those areas that he's got to continue to improve on. And just the stuff that every player has to improve on, consistent, take great attention to detail. He's really smart, as you can imagine. Consistent attention to detail and practice habits are going to be really important.
Thank you.
Up next, Patrick Murphy.
Chris, you mentioned this stretch of games here. I was looking at your schedule yesterday to see kind of where this ranks in the grand scheme of things, and you guys have some pretty tough stretches if you base it on the rankings and things like that. As you said earlier, the Big Ten in your eyes is the best conference. Do weeks like this, when you know how difficult it's going to be, just kind of justify what you've said about this conference this year?
Yeah, I think I don't know that our league needs me or anyone else anymore to I haven't tried to politic for it to be categorized as the best league in the country. I just think, it's going to be us or the Big 12, and I think most people would say the depth of our league is different right now than the depth of the Big 12, just the quality top to bottom of our league. So, and I think the non-conference has proven what we all thought last year and kind of what we thought going into this year. Perhaps if you don't have maybe a non-conference, Patrick, maybe do you not have, the same amount of credibility to say that. To be honest with you, I'm not really concerned about it one way or the other. I think most people recognize the greatness of the Big Ten at this moment in its time as a basketball conference. I think people recognize. Now, you could say, well, it hasn't won a national championship and all that kind of stuff, and I think all that's important. But when you're talking about quality of depth from team to team, it's clearly the best it's ever been. It's the greatest the league has been able to show when you talk about overall depth in NCAA tournament teams. So I think you just try to take it one game at a time. We're playing a great Rutgers team. It's a top 10 team. We've got to perform well, and we've got to play we'll need to play our best game of the season. There's no question. So we're excited about the challenge and looking forward to this week.
Up next, Clay Hall.
Hey, Coach, following up what Patrick said, that's a lot of landmines in the regular season. Is the trade-off that if you can get there, then you are more than prepared for the postseason?
Yeah, absolutely, Clay. I've said this a couple times here that even a couple years ago when our league wasn't quite as strong, but it still got, I think, 8 teams in the tournament maybe, which were the most it had ever gotten. I believe that was in our second year here, C.J. Jackson's senior year. Even going into that NCAA tournament, we had gotten beat up, but we felt extremely prepared. And, when we quote unquote upset Iowa State, I'm not sure. I think the seeding might have said that, but I'm not sure. I felt like we were a team that was capable of winning in the NCAA tournament because of the caliber of league we had fought our way through. So, and obviously our non-conference helped us that year in particular, but you hope absolutely that if you're fortunate enough to play in that thing, that it really prepares you for it without, it can also do the flip side of that. It can also beat you up pretty good. So you got to handle that the right way.
Are you convinced that there will be a big dance? There will be an NCAA tournament at some point?
I can't say I've given it a ton of thought since the start of the season, to be honest with you, Clay, but absolutely.
Thanks.
Up next, Tim Hall.
Hey, Coach, I was wondering, just you follow the game about as much as any coach out there, with the turnaround job that Peichel has done at Rutgers. I mean, that's got to be one of the best turnaround jobs done in America. Just when you look at Rutgers' program and how long it's been since they've won a conference championship, since they were going to make a tournament last year, and like your team, and they didn't get to go. I was just wondering what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, he's done a tremendous job. Tremendous job. I think he's a terrific coach, and done it his way, and obviously dealt with some struggles early as he was building it, and they've had, I think they have great belief as an administration in what he's done and can do and going to continue to do. He's a terrific coach and a really good man. They've had some moments where they've really had good, I mentioned yesterday maybe that, Gary Waters, who's the name that a lot of Ohioans know, had some really good teams there. As well as, I just forgot the name of the coach after him, but he had some really good teams in what was the Big East as well.
Eddie, right? Eddie Jordan?
No, it was before Eddie. It was this coach, really good coach, but he had some issues there, I think, where they had to let him go because he was winning.
Oh, Mike Rice.
Yes, Mike Rice. Thank you. But obviously the tenure after Mike was a challenge, and Steve's done a great job.
Just to clarify, is the non-conference completely done? Is there any chance to pick up another game throughout the rest of the way?
There's always that possibility, Tim. I don't know right now if we're going to be able to fit it in. We do have one more game, but I wouldn't completely close the door on it.
Up next, Tony Girdman.
Chris, how much time do you spend just thinking about you've got the difficult schedule and a difficult year? How do you, the 2020 as a whole during a pandemic, how much time do you spend just figuring out how to balance the two for your players so that, yes, they need to be prepared for the tournament, but that they also need to, you're not just crushing them?
A lot. Yeah, a lot. Yeah, it weighs on you as a coach. To be honest with you, it does. You're what they're going through. Again, they chose, they want to do it, but it doesn't take away from the fact that, they're not going to get a chance to see their family over Christmas. So you think about it a lot. I think about their, peace of mind, their enjoyment and satisfaction in playing, and how to create that as much as possible. Obviously, winning does that. They had a lot of fun on Saturday. That's great as a coach, but you're not going to win every game. You're going to go through some rough stretches, but weighs on your mind a lot, particularly this year.
Up next, Colin Hassel.
Chris, I just wanted to specifically ask about, Ron Harper Jr. since you played him, the last couple of years, but it just seems like, 24 game. I think he's had 5 turnovers in 6 games. What on film is just different about him this season?
Well, he's just, he came in, and I don't have any idea on his recruiting ranking, but he came in as a good player and was an impact really as a freshman pretty early on. But I think what you've seen right now is he's a gifted athlete, and he's got a huge frame, really big frame. He moves. There's no question he's a bona fide NBA prospect. There's no question in my mind. He's certainly one of the best players in our league right now. There's no question. And he's a mismatch challenge. I think he's a terrific talent. Older guy, again, has benefited from a lot of minutes early in his career, a lot like Geo Baker did. And again, they've got a lot of guys. And then they obviously have, a transfer in Jacob Young, who's a terrific talent, who played with them last year, who was from Texas, I believe, a transfer, and has really come. Those 2 guys, along with Geo Baker, have been outstanding for him. Mathis has been good for him as well. Obviously, I mentioned the big fellow. They've got a lot of really good players.
Then for you guys, I think you guys are top 10 nationally in turnover rate right now. What's sort of been working for you in that area that's put you in that position? Because I think if you look at what you've done best, I think that's one of the top things.
Yeah, I think it's we'll see how that progresses, right, Colin? I think we'll see. You get a snippet through 7 games that you got a chance to be pretty solid in that area. You hope. Certainly through 7 games in our first 3 years here, we could not have said that was a strength for us. But it has been clearly a strength for us right now. Older guards help that for sure. You have 2 guards that and 3 in Jimmy who don't turn it over at a really high clip. We've got to continue to take care of the ball at other positions and make better decisions. Justice has struggled a little bit turning the ball over. Our post big guys have to continue to do a good job not turning it over. But I think our guys, as you mentioned, it's one of the best things we're doing right now. We've got to continue to do that well. There's some other things that I could immediately rattle off that we're not doing as well as we need to. But in that area, it's been a strength for us. It needs to continue to be.
Thanks.
And 2 more questions. We'll go with Adam Jardy first.
Chris, you had said going into the UCLA game that because of the quick turnaround, you would have to simplify things and maybe let your guys just play a little bit more freely. Offensively, it was one of your better performances efficiency-wise. Do you take anything from that as far as adjusting game plans going forward? If maybe trying to script a little bit less and give guys more freedom, especially maybe given the fact you don't turn the ball over that much?
Yeah, it's a valid question. I think, and it's something we've looked at. And I don't know that we scripted a whole lot less in that particular game, even though the turnaround was shorter. We still had a definite plan going into that. But I think the flow of the game impacted some of that. But, yeah, I think it's a worthwhile question. I think UCLA is good defensively. They're not at this point, they've not shown the numbers that the teams we have coming up on our schedule are. So we'll see if we can have those kind of numbers against even better defensive teams.
Final question goes to Brendan Gulick.
Hey, Coach, I wanted to follow up on what Colin asked you with the turnovers. Is that a product of maybe the defensive philosophies from the teams that you've seen, where maybe they are not trying to cause turnovers as frequently, or is it like is it an extra focus that you guys have put into that? I mean, I realize the whole veteran guard thing can help, but there's got to be some level of explanation as to why it's been so successful for you when you mentioned in the past it hadn't been early in the year.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's something I've asked myself a lot. Of our teams at Butler were pretty good at handling the ball and taking care of the ball. Our turnover numbers were typically pretty low. And then that wasn't the case here. Hadn't been the case yet. So I think some of it is we do have some returning guys who've been in our program for a few years. And I think that helps, and not just the older guards, but I think that helps to a certain degree. Now, as you continue to add, whether it's Seth or Michi, other guys too, I think that'll be a challenge we'll have to continue to look at. But I think some of the consistency helps there. Yeah, I wouldn't say we've necessarily played defenses that they're built to turn you over outside of Purdue. That's what Purdue does. And if you look at our numbers, it was the highest turnover number of the year. So I just think it is something we emphasize. We had not been great at it in the previous couple of years. I'm anxious to see if we, through 7 more games, what are our numbers like? I'm not, saying it's going to stay top 10 in the country, but what are our numbers like? Because if we can do that, it gives us obviously a chance in every game. You're not beating yourself as much when you're getting the shot every time. But we'll see. We'll see if we can continue to do that as we play different types of defenses.